Okay, how we doing, everybody? It is Tuesday, June 21st, the first day of summer. How appropriate that we begin we begin this show on the first day of summer talking baseball. We make the transition from the court to the diamond because basketball season is over. Even if there was a Game 7 in the NBA Finals, that was going to be the case today. We're running out of sports to talk about, but hey, there's always room on the diamond. Gary and Thorne joining us. You can find his great work over on the DK Playbook. He's got the latest for tonight's slate, full 15 gamer, DFS targets, values. We'll dive into the sports book a bit as well on the show. Garion, thanks for making time. You were kind of a Tuesday guy during the NBA season, during the fall, during the World Series. You've been around on Tuesdays.
Yeah, I mean, last season, Steve and I think we're doing Tuesdays every day of the baseball season. So, yeah, got some experience on Tuesdays. Yeah, like you said, first day of summer. Fitting we're talking about, dog days of summer sport, although it really made it seem like we're digging the bottom of the barrel talking about baseball, which hurts my feelings. But it's kind of the state of affairs right now.
Well, it only feels like that today because, it's still, at least for me, I'm still trying to let it sink in that hockey's not quite over yet, but it's a transition phase, and then we'll be fully bought in. So
I don't know. I mean, football season starts in 80 days, I think. So football season actually starts in 2 weeks. So we'll have a nice 2-week conversation about baseball.
Yep. And then we start overreacting to everything in mandatory mini camp and you know how it goes. But, hey, looking at tonight's slate, there is a little bit of news. Aaron Judge isn't in the lineup tonight for the Yankees. As far as other regulars, Jose Ramirez is playing. But as far as DNPs, now I feel like we're talking football. Who is inactive? It's Aaron Judge. That's one the big name that's not in the lineup tonight for the Yankees. But what jumps out to you tonight on this slate?
It's a big one. Like you mentioned, we've got all 30 teams in action. If you're playing the DraftKings main, 13 game slates, we've got the 2 games that's starting at 6:00, which has been a weird quirk of this season. I know the Reds in particular love those early start games. But yeah, this is a slate that I would say is probably defined by its lack of desirable pitching. There's some good names at the top. Nestor Cortez obviously has been one of the best storylines of the entire season. And he draws a really nice matchup against a Tampa team that has struggled against lefties for the season in general. But now we're talking about this team just plagued by injuries. Today they put Manuel Margot, who's one of their best hitters of left-handed pitching, on the IL. Kevin Kiermaier goes on the IL today with him to join Wander Franco, to join Brandon Lowe. There's really not that many players you would be able to identify on this Rays team. Not that that's a team that a lot of people are great at identifying players to begin with, but I think this sets up really well for Cortez, who's someone who's, been hovering around a 28% strikeout rate for the season. The Rays have also been one of the highest strikeout rate teams in all of baseball. So I think he's in a pretty nice spot. Gausman is in a kind of a weird situation. He's been, reports that maybe he's been tipping his pitches as of late. We have not seen the results from Gausman that we were seeing back in April and in early May. Got lit up in his last outing against the Baltimore Orioles. He's $10,200 against a White Sox team that is one of the hottest hitting teams in all of baseball right now. Got Tim Anderson back last night. So that's not incredibly appealing. Dylan Cease, kind of a similar situation where the results haven't been great as of late. And the Blue Jays are, like the White Sox, one of the best hitting teams in baseball across the last 30 days. So you really kind of get into a weird situation where, aside from Cortez, I don't know how many of these guys above 9,000 I'm really all that interested in. So then you start having to get through into some of the more interesting, maybe lesser known names to some extent. And then you try to save some money a little later on. But I would just say in general, the lack of stable pitching options is what's going to define this slate.
Okay. So in a lot of cases, maybe when it comes down to finding hitting on the slate, you're going to be, your argument may begin with, I am fading. Sorry about that. That's my backpack that fell because my cat is running around causing trouble. The home office, it's still a thing here in 2022. Where was I? Oh, in a lot of cases, when you look at higher priced pitching or hitters, your argument may begin with, I'm going to fade X pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the number one pitcher on this slate, I think most people will gravitate in this direction. So it's generally if you're picking someone who's $8,600 and saying he's the best guy in the slate, it might be a little bit of a contrarian play. Spencer Strider will not be a contrarian play tonight. I think everyone's kind of picked up on what this rookie is putting out in Atlanta. He's been an incredible story. The mustache helps. I think the correlation between his rise as a starter and Top Gun Maverick coming together, it's a match made in heaven. But Strider, oftentimes when you see a guy move from a bullpen role to a rotation role, the big thing that is sacrificed is the strikeout rate, because they just can't throw max effort for, Strider set his career high in his last outing, 106 pitches against Washington. He had a 38.9% strikeout rate as a reliever. He's got a 38.3% strikeout rate as a starter. So nothing has really happened. Nothing has changed with Spencer Strider moving from the rotation or to the rotation from the bullpen, which is really incredible stuff. The ERA as a starter below 3, the FIP as a starter below 3. There's really no knock on this guy. And when it comes to matchup, the Giants are a really good team. I don't think anyone's going to dispute that, but they have not been hitting as well as they had to begin the season. The last 14 days, they have a WOBA below 300. It's in the lower third of all of baseball. They also have the 5th highest strikeout rate in all of baseball in that same span of time. So I think everyone's going to be about Spencer Strider tonight. It's really going to come down to how do you differentiate yourself with an SP2? Because again, unless you're going Nestor Cortez and spending a ton of money with your pitching staff, I think you're going to have to go into, I don't want to say like some risky territory, but some guys that maybe you don't necessarily feel the most comfortable with on a week-to-week basis.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a while since, like you said, since the Giants have put up a real crooked number. They scored 15 a couple weeks ago against the Marlins, but nothing to feel really great about with that offense, like really pounding a starting pitcher or pitching staff in general. When it comes to stacking tonight, we've kind of alluded to this a little bit, but what are some where are some places you might want to start?
So I think the number one stack for me would be the Cardinals. They're going up against Chichi Gonzalez, who really just shouldn't be pitching at the major league level. And I think even, if people in the Brewers organization were to take like a truth serum, they would tell you that too tonight. They don't want to start Chichi Gonzalez, but they had to put Aaron Ashby on the IL yesterday. They just need someone to go out there and start. So this will be his first start with the Brewers since he was DFA'd by the Twins earlier on this season. This is a desperation spot. This is a guy who, you go back to the start of last season, has just been absolutely shellacked, specifically by right-handed batters. Righties are hitting 327 with a 664 slugging percentage off this guy since the start of 2021. And you've got two of the best right-handed hitters in all of baseball in this Cardinals lineup, both at relatively decent prices. So I think you start this stack, obviously, with Paul Goldschmidt. You start it with Nolan Arenado, and then you kind of work backwards from there. And thankfully, there's not a ton of pricey hitters beyond that. I mean, Tommy Edman's solid, obviously, has the potential to steal some bases at 4,800, but Nolan Gorman's got a ton of power. He's just 3,900. Brendan Donovan's kind of taken over that number 2 spot in the Cardinals lineup. He's a left-handed batter going up against the right-handed Gonzalez, 3.7. That's not a bad price at all. I think my favorite value play, though, would be Dylan Carlson, who a lot of hype on Carlson coming into 2022, didn't really live up to it, then got hurt. But in the games he's played since he's been back, it's about 10 games, 29 plate appearances. He's got a 180 WRC plus. So I think he's starting to round into form. He's got the pedigree that kind of makes these numbers seem sustainable. And he's only $2,400. So I think there's some really nice ways to build like a very affordable Cardinals stack. And then if you want to talk about affordability, this is not a team we often talk about when it comes to stacking, but the Pittsburgh Pirates, I think, are a kind of viable stacking situation tonight. And look, the Cubs, their struggles have been well documented the last little bit. They were on a 10-game losing streak. They really haven't had all that much to be excited about. And a big reason why their pitching staff is just decimated right now. So Matt Swarmer is making the start for the Cubs tonight. He's started 4 games at the major league level. He's a rookie. He's given up 10 home runs in those 4 games. And for the Pirates, aside from Ke'Bryan Hayes, and Brian Reynolds, who, are not crazy priced. They're both under 4K, but are proven hitters, are very good. you're talking about the ability to get like Daniel Vogelbach, who all he does is hit home runs, in there for $2,500. O'Neal Cruz, who was the talk of baseball Twitter last night, is the absolute minimum. He is 2K. And then you've got Jack Sawinski, who is kind of like a sneaky candidate for National League Rookie of the Year. He leads all rookies in home runs with 11. He's batting in the 3 spot tonight. He's $2,100. So, we were talking about that situation where maybe you start a lineup with Spencer Strider and with Nestor Cortez.
Yep.
Maybe the next move in a scenario like that is to start stacking some Pirates because they are incredibly affordable.
Yeah, Zawinski's been on a roll too. He's been hitting the ball really well over the last week. So
had 3 home runs on Father's Day, I think, which kind of skews the numbers a little bit, obviously,
sure.
But he can hit. He's got some upside. He's got some power. Like these are at least like prospects that the Pirates are calling up that are actual guys who will be playing baseball for the next decade. Like the Pirates lineup has kind of been a joke for the first 2 months of the season, but Jack Sawinski is an actual major league caliber player. And he's hitting third tonight and he's hitting well lately. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like the Pirates. Now they're still the Pirates. They could definitely just get no hit tonight, but I don't think that's going to happen against Swarmer.
Just a little pushback, just to create some conversation. When it comes to the Brewers, though, my only question for you is, after Chichi, that bullpen's pretty good, right? So isn't that some concern a little bit, right, in terms of a stack full game?
I think, though, you have to think about it like from a game script scenario, which is if they're not getting to Chichi anyway, your stack's dead. That's just kind of the cost of doing business at this point. But it's more likely than not that they get to Chichi early. And at that point, the Brewers are probably not in a situation where they're going to be using their best relievers anyway. This isn't a night where you're going to get Devin Williams or Josh Hader in there if they're down by 4 runs because Chichi Gonzalez got lit up in the first and second inning. So I think you're almost looking at a scenario. I know it's sort of laughable to ever project like a position player pitching, but I would say like that's the sort of mindset you're in tonight with the Cardinals, is that they're going to score so many runs against Chichi Gonzalez that it's more likely Rowdy Tellez will be pitching an inning tonight than it is Josh Hader will be pitching an inning tonight.
Garion's got a write-up right now, again, on the DraftKings playbook, dknation.draftkings.com/playbook. If you click the playbook tab, go to DFS sports betting content, you'll find Garion's baseball article right up at the top, kind of maps out an outline to how to look at tonight. Cardinals Brewers is a big talking point. I'm a little surprised. One of your value pitchers tonight, we didn't spend time on him yet. You mentioned Strider. If you want to go the Cortez route, sure. You're into Rich Hill tonight for the Red Sox. That surprises me a bit. Rich Hill's he's a little dicey.
Again, so this is what I was talking about. You kind of have to put yourself in a situation where maybe you're not so much looking at the pitcher.
Yep.
You're more looking at the matchup.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of funny that there's this mini tier tonight in the pricing. We've got Rich Hill at $7,200, and then you've got Marco Gonzalez at $7,100 going up against the Oakland Athletics. And coming into Monday, the Tigers and the Athletics were on pace to basically be the worst offensive teams we've had in the last 20 years. They are pitiful this season. So you're really just kind of throwing out a pitcher and saying, this is about the Tigers. This isn't about Rich Hill necessarily. This is just about the fact that the Tigers, while they have just called up Riley Green, so that lineup isn't looking quite as bad as it has, in April and in May. They have the worst isolated power in all of baseball. They have the worst WRC plus in all of baseball. The hope would be that Rich Hill can last 5 or 6 innings, maybe give up 2 earned runs or less and strike out anywhere from 4 to 7 guys, because the Tigers also have a pretty high strikeout rate for the season as well. And then you're also looking at win expectancy. And when you're comparing Marco Gonzalez and Rich Hill, while Gonzalez is $100 cheaper, I think Rich Hill pitching at home has a much higher win expectancy than Marco Gonzalez does tonight. I mean, I'd be surprised if Rich Hill doesn't come out of this game with a win, even if he pitches poorly. So I think you're almost starting from a place where Rich Hill's just got 4 DraftKings points, and anything he can do from that point is just a little bit of a bonus. But again, this is a weak pitching slate. I don't think I can emphasize that enough. There's just not a ton of guys to trust here. Again, I was just talking about how much I dislike Matt Swarmer, who's given up 10 home runs in 4 starts. He's $8,200 somehow. So that's kind of where we are on this slate.
One of the other talking points, and we said this off the top of the show, So Jalen Beeks is starting tonight for the Rays, and that was announced earlier this afternoon. Not to mention Judge is not playing. So are there angles to capitalize on when it comes to the Yankees lineup? Because I know you mentioned with Cortez on the mound, that's important. But how about from an offensive standpoint for the Yankees facing Beeks?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to like here. And as you mentioned, it's a much more affordable stack at this point with Aaron Judge and his $6,300 salary out of the lineup. I mean, out of the leadoff spot. He'd been hitting leadoff a little bit the last couple of days. Yeah, I think it's sometimes tough when you're in a situation where you don't necessarily know the handedness of the pitcher you're going to be facing the second time through the batting order. I think even the most optimistic impression of Jalen Beeks tonight would be that he pitches probably 2.5, 3 innings. I think his season high is 2 1/3 innings. So he's not going to see a ton of guys in this game, but I know the thought process was maybe that Josh Fleming would start this game. So I guess there's a chance that we see Fleming in not a bulk role necessarily, but he'll probably factor in here at some point. Like the Rays have been doing a lot of bullpen games lately. Like they just need guys to eat innings. So I do think you can kind of look at this like a lot of the guys in the Yankees lineup are going to get 2 plate appearances against a left-handed pitcher. And when you start breaking down some of the splits, obviously Giancarlo Stanton has some amazing career numbers against left-handed pitching. He's got tons of power. No one has to really talk too much about Giancarlo Stanton's upside. I think we all are aware of it. Mm-hmm. But whenever you can get him for less than $5,000, that's a pretty nice place to start. And then I think Gleyber Torres is a really, really fascinating player. He's someone who since the beginning of May has, quietly been one of the best hitters in baseball. He's got a 153 WRC plus going back to May 1st. Specifically against left-handed pitching, he's got a 180 WRC plus this season. He's hit lefties really, really well. So if you're going to get 2 plate appearances against, 2 different left-handed pitchers in Fleming and in Beeks, I think Torres is in a really nice spot as well. Donaldson, obviously below 4K. I believe he's hitting second in the lineup tonight.
Yep.
So again, if you're just going to get someone like that, he's not had an amazing season. His StatCast numbers continue to be better than his real life numbers. But for a guy who's hitting second in the highest scoring offense in baseball, you could do a lot worse.
Once again, we're talking baseball. If you have thoughts, comments, concerns, hot takes, we'll take them. Like there's a question on the YouTube side. It's from Steve Buchanan with a wrench. I think there's a reason why there's a wrench next to his name, not because he's in charge, but other reasons. Okay. Any thoughts from the host on grilling half a hamburger? That is not true. Turns out when the photo was taken of me at the grill earlier this afternoon, the some of the food was already being removed, so it looked very barren in one place. But yeah,
people were so happy to be eating it; it was just gone. If anything,
right? So
your barbecuing skills.
Yeah, timing is everything. Right. But Steve Buchanan, wrench, you are welcome over whenever you'd like. I know he wants to come by. I know he does. Just to see it. He might not want to eat it, but just to give it to me. So invitation's open, Gary, and you too, if you're ever in town.
I drop hints many times to our bosses that I would like a free trip to Boston. We will see when one of them take me up on it.
You were here a couple years ago before the pandemic.
Yeah, maybe 2018.
Yeah.
No, it might have been 2019. I'm trying to think. I know I made it to Fenway. I was pretty pumped about that. The Jays just happened to be in town, which was really fun. But
wait, real? Oh, right, yeah, because you were here for work, and that just worked out. That way.
Yeah. It was like it wasn't like a weekend trip. It was like a Tuesday to a Thursday morning or something like that. So I went right from the airport to Fenway because it was supposed to be like torrential downpour on the Wednesday that I was there, and I was just like, well, I got to make it to Fenway. So I think I got in at like the second or third inning.
Was that your first time to Fenway Park?
Yeah. It was my first time in Boston. Yeah.
Very cool. There you go. Story time on the slate. Very good. And of course, all starts with Steve Buchanan. Without his help contributing to the conversation, we wouldn't have reached that point. So thank you.
This is like a show last year. We got the band back together.
Yeah, we it's right. Yeah, we we got to do it again. Were you with Steve this morning on the sweat?
Yes, I was.
Did he have any pushback on any of your plays? He usually
Not
gets along with you, right?
Yeah, we have a pretty cordial relationship, I would say. No, but to kind of back up how I was talking about Spencer Strider, I would say that even Bukes was saying, bar none, the best pitching play on the slate. So whether or not that comes to fruition is one thing, but I would say I'd assume Strider's ownership is probably somewhere in like the 30 to 40% range tonight. Like he's going to be very popular. So as much as I like him, just understand there's the caveat. He's going to be extremely chalky.
Okay. Like I said, we'll take your questions, any comments, concerns. Miami Misfits. Torres didn't do so well last night. Maybe he pops.
I mean,
Then
again,
also adds, I may have missed, but value plays other than Cruz tonight. I think that's a question. Or which starting pitcher? I'll take a second answer.
Okay. I mean, yeah, if we don't want to talk about the Pirates as the extreme value plays, as I mentioned, really like Dylan Carlson. Think he's in a really nice spot. I would also say there's some sneaky, like high scoring potential in the Battle of the Beltway. Everyone's, I know everyone's going to be wanting to watch Nationals Orioles tonight. I know that's the game that everyone's got their attention, but this is a battle of two pretty underwhelming starting pitchers in Jordan Lyles and Eric Fetty, particularly on the Baltimore side, because, suddenly the Orioles have one of the best bullpens in baseball. It's kind of crazy, but that's really one of the underrated storylines of this DFS season is how hard it is to score runs off of this Orioles bullpen when they have a lead or they're playing in a close game. It is the opposite with the Nationals. They have a terrible bullpen. They have the second highest bullpen FIP in all of baseball at 4.47. So when you start looking at some of these Baltimore bats, they're just not expensive to begin with. I mean, Cedric Mullins is always going to be hovering around 5K. That's kind of the all-star rate, but he's only $4,600. I think Ryan Mountcastle is in a really nice spot tonight at $3,900. He's sort of under the radar, been incredibly hot. If you go back to the start of June, he's got, I believe, 8 home runs and a 180 WRC plus in the month of June. He's been just tearing the cover off the baseball. Sort of unfortunate that with Trey Mancini coming back into the lineup tonight, that Mountcastle has to shift down in the batting order to number 5. But having said that, Trey Mancini, $3,300, was hitting really well before this recent, nagging injury he's had the last week or so. But hitting second, hitting really well, and just $3,300. So I think the Orioles, much like the Pirates, could be one of those teams that you usually stick your nose up at and don't want any part of, especially on a slate this size. But I think they could sneakily be a team that scores 6 or 7 runs tonight.
Orioles offense, low key, pretty good. They have been
Here's a hot take. If the Orioles weren't in the American League East, they'd be above 500 right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're 8 under right now. I mean, that's a lot better than these other teams in the basement of their own divisions, and it's not the AL East, right? I mean,
they would be pushing for the AL Central crown. I honestly believe that.
Yeah, the White Sox can't get their crap together, and neither can the Angels. I mean, the Angels, that losing streak really did them in.
Well, I think this was Steve brought this up this morning, but on the DraftKings Sportsbook, we are at a point where the Astros are minus 2,500 to win the American League West. It is June 21st. That is a crazy number. And you even think the Yankees, as far ahead as they are still nowhere in the minus 2,500 territory. I mean, minus 1,100 is not bad, but that's how little respect the algorithms have for any other team in the American League West right now.
That probably pains Steve because of his love for the Mariners.
Yeah. Still outside shot at a wild card, maybe, probably not.
Robbie Ray and the Mariners, I should say.
That's true. It's too much of a good thing. It's like eating 4 scoops of ice cream. Just was too much.
It's a good transition over to the DK Sportsbook. Anything that correlates from what you've been talking about? So, all right, let me throw this at you. So if you're looking at the Sportsbook tonight, you like a Cardinals Brewers stack. Does that, make you look at the total of over 9 for tonight?
I think there's some reason to be enticed by that. Jack Flaherty is starting for the Cardinals. Obviously a very good pitcher when he's healthy, but this is just his second start back from a lengthy IL stint. He did not look great in his first start. And I would even say sort of reminiscent of last night's slate where Lance Lynn was making his second start off the IL. Granted it was against the Blue Jays, but he gives up 5 runs. It's hard to come back from these lengthy IL stints, especially in the middle of the summer when a lot of these offenses are starting to heat up. Now, I will say the Brewers are kind of trending in the opposite direction of a lot of these teams. They had that lengthy losing streak. Their offense is just an 89 WRC plus so far in the month of June. They also have a pretty high strikeout rate. So maybe the Brewers don't do enough to kind of carry the load here and get this game over. But I would say at the same time, right now, the money line for the Cardinals is just minus 125. It was minus 130 this morning. So that's actually moving in the other direction. That's a little surprising to me. I think the pitching matchup is clearly in favor of the Cardinals. I think they have the advantage offensively. Even the Brewers are 1-6, I think, in their last 7 games at home. So it's not as if they've been this Goliath in Milwaukee. I would be really interested in taking the Cardinals as very, very shallow road favorites tonight.
Yeah, Brewers just 4 games over 500 at home for the season. Let me just see here. Their implied team total.
I think it was 4.5.
4.5. That makes sense, right? With the total being set at 9. So Cardinals over, yeah, minus 125. So you could just take it the other way around and just take them to win the game, right? I mean, that's
but even if you want to get like creative here, I know we love our same game parlays. If you wanted to take Cardinals over 4.5 runs, Cardinals money line, and maybe like Paul Goldschmidt over 1.5 total bases. I think all of those are listed at minus 125. So you'd probably end up with like, I don't know, like a plus 350, plus 380, same game parlay, something like that.
I get overwhelmed by these, to be quite honest. Where is our man Goldschmidt?
I think he was, let's see.
Cardinals, Brewers. I've got the right game. Where's Paulie? Where's Goldie? It's probably.
I don't actually see his name. That's really weird.
Yeah.
Wait, let's use Arenado for the sake of argument.
Maybe because he's free money.
Maybe
he's been that good, right? I mean,
but yeah, we'll go two total bases with Nolan Arenado.
Okay. We'll go over to the team total.
Yeah, we'll go over 4 runs for the Cardinals.
Or over 4. 4.5.
And what are you looking at?
Plus 260.
Okay. Not terrible.
Cardinals, money line, Cardinals, over 4.5 runs. Nolan Arenado, 2+ total bases. I mean, you just got to get to 2, and that works for you.
Yeah, but I think, as I was talking about Nationals, Orioles, I think that game's set at 9.5.
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested to take the over in that scenario. I just think there's not that many pitchers I really trust on this slate tonight. So I wouldn't have a problem maybe looking at some overs.
Very good. Yeah. And there's this trend. I mean, it's annoying. I get it. This trend of Tuesdays. Favorites do really well on Tuesdays. Are you aware of this?
No, I hadn't really seen that one, but
very annoying.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe. I think that
it's very trendy. It has nothing to do with the sport. It has to do with
it's a fun trend to talk about. But there are definitely, I would say, some road favorites that should maybe be they would normally be much bigger favorites if the scenario were different. Like I think the Yankees only being minus 165 even, just with the state of the Rays pitching right now, just with the state of their offense and the ability they have to run out healthy bats.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that game was in New York, I think they're minus 220, and I really don't think it makes that big a difference considering how good the Yankees have been on the road so far this season. So, between them and, even like a team like the Phillies, honestly, I know Martin Perez has been pretty good so far this season, but this is a Phillies lineup that is almost designed in a laboratory to crush left-handed pitching. Even Kyle Schwarber has been hitting lefties lately. So that just seems like it's maybe a dangerous spot for Martin Perez. Got a little bit of baked in normalization there. I think that actually the over under in that game of 8, I think that's a relatively low number considering how underwhelming even Kyle Gibson has been for the Phillies so far this season. So again, just kind of not a lot of pitchers I like in general. So overs could be the way to go.
Okay, very good. How about some How about some bigger picture baseball thoughts? Anything from a value standpoint, futures? You got a developing take? I mean, because we're about now 3 weeks from the All-Star break, and of course we've got a little bit of a ways now until the trade deadline, still a month plus. But with this third wild card, it gives these other teams some false hope that they're contending, and maybe teams will hang on a little bit longer, so it keeps it competitive. I think that's baseball's idea, to keep you thinking you're in it. But anything in the futures market that interests you?
I will say a bet that I really liked at the start of the season, and it hasn't actually moved that much, which is a little surprising, is DraftKings gives you the ability to bet on the league winner for the World Series. And I think the American League East is plus 225 to have a team from the AL East win the World Series. And to me, it's kind of just a numbers game. I mean, you mentioned the implementation of a third wild card spot. I know it's not currently the case. It had been the case for about the past 2 weeks. I think the Guardians have kind of snuck their way past both the Red Sox and the Rays at this point. But to me, there's a really, really high probability that we are going into October with the Yankees having won the American League East with the best record in baseball. So they'll have the automatic bye going into the second round of the playoffs. So that already looks good for your AL East future. And then the 3 wildcard teams in some order are going to be the Rays, the Red Sox, and the Blue Jays. Now, 2 of those teams will have to play each other.
Right.
But that guarantees that another American League East team will make it to the second round of the playoffs.
Right.
And then whichever of those teams finishes last in the wildcard standings will get to play, most likely, the winner of the American League Central, which we've already talked about is probably not all that daunting a competition. I'm not saying that if the White Sox get their crap together, they can definitely be a very good team. But if you've got the Red Sox against the Twins or the Blue Jays against the Twins, you're probably taking the Blue Jays or the Red Sox in that series. So there's I don't want to say like a good chance, but there's a reasonable chance that when push comes to shove and you're in the American League Division Series, 3 of the 4 remaining teams will be teams from the American League East. And at that point, you've got pretty good odds that the American League East is going to represent the American League in the World Series. And you've got plus 225 on whatever team that is to now win the World Series. Like I said, I liked that play back in April.
Yep.
And that number really hasn't moved. I think it was plus 235 when I bet it in April. But I think it's still a pretty good time to hop on.
So I'm just trying to think this out now. So of course you'd have a division winner, which would in all likelihood is the Yankees. 3 wild cards in order would likely be Blue Jays, Rays, Red Sox, or Red Sox, Rays, whatever it may be. So you're saying a minimum of 2 would be, or actually would it be a maximum of 2 or a minimum of 2 in the division?
Minimum 2, because let's just say we finish right now. It would be Blue Jays, Rays, Red Sox.
Right.
So the Blue Jays would play the Rays, meaning one of those 2 teams would make it to the division round. I believe in that scenario, the winner of that would play the Yankees. And then you'd have the Red Sox versus the Twins. And if the Red Sox were to beat the Twins, then you'd have a scenario where, let's say, the Blue Jays are playing the Yankees and the Red Sox are playing the Astros in the American League Division Series. So there's just a chance that you could have 75% of the remaining teams be in the American League East. So to have that prop, I think it's pretty tempting, because you look at, the AL West at plus 550. Obviously that's a bigger number, but what's the Astros future right now to win the World Series? I'm going to bet it's like plus 700 or something like that.
Plus 650, close.
So why would you take plus 550 when the only chance the American League West has are the Houston Astros? You might as well just bet them outright. Where this AL East bet, you've got a bunch of different horses you can kind of hitch your wagon to.
Yes. And same with taking winning state with the Mets. Like you're relying on the Mets going through a gauntlet of, you worry about the Dodgers. You got to worry about the Padres or the Giants. You got to worry about, the NL Central's but NL, and they're in the NL East and they've got a clear lead. So you're asking for a little bit more, but you're right. You'd have 3 of the 4, and if the Red Sox could push through, you could get an ALCS. That's right. And an ALCS of 2 teams. So, but right
at this point,
end of the day, your point being is minimum. The way the path would work, you'd have the Yankees, the Rays. The Yankees or the Blue Jays in the in the American League Championship Series.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now it would be, if you were to, let's just say the American League gets all 3 wild cards.
Yep.
In that scenario, there is no way an American League East team doesn't at least make the championship series.
I like it.
Oh, there you go.
I like it. Good stuff. That's the way he just mapped it out. I'm like, huh, crazy. It hasn't moved as much. What else you got? Anything from a player award standpoint?
I mean, I'd love to just look at them. We can kind of go through it here. I think, Alonso would immediately jump out to me as someone who might be a little underpriced.
Yep.
I think a lot of people sort of had Francisco Lindor earmarked coming into the season as the, like, if the Mets are good, this is the guy who will be the reason and get all the attention. But I think pretty clearly Pete Alonso has been the engine driving that offense. So I think he's in a nice spot. I would say, generally speaking, that Bryce Harper is in a really interesting situation, like just from a narrative perspective, fighting through injury, bringing the Phillies back, like this midseason manager shift. His numbers are still phenomenal. But I don't think we're going to get like a scenario where he wins back-to-back National League MVPs. The likelihood of that seems just not all that high to me. Maybe someone like Austin Riley, just as more of a long shot bet, just because of how hot the Braves are right now. But again, that would be a scenario where first and foremost, he'd have to be better than Ronald Acuna Jr. And really be a lot better just so they don't kind of split the vote. And also you're talking about from a narrative perspective, yes, the Braves got off to a poor start, but we're talking about the reigning World Series champions. So if they end up winning 97 games, is it really all that surprising for a team that we know was supposed to be really, really good? So I think Goldschmidt, I will say, is properly priced as the favorite. But yeah, to me, I think maybe Pete Alonso would be a fun bet there. The American League's a lot more tough because I really, really believe at this point, we are looking at a scenario where unless the Yankees go on some sort of crazy losing streak or Aaron Judge gets hurt, this is Aaron Judge's award to lose.
Right.
Because they're going to finish with so many wins.
They're on pace to win 120 games.
I mean, it's crazy, but at the same time, the stat I heard a couple days ago, which really blew me away. And it's one of those things is happening, but to still hear it is crazy. The season where Mariano Rivera finished with his most career saves, he had a whip of 1.05. That is the current team whip of the New York Yankees. So basically, their staff is pitching as well as peak Mariano Rivera right now.
Yeah.
And then they have the best offense in baseball. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And you kind of look at who the competition is here. Mike Trout, amazing player. Shohei Ohtani, amazing player. Do you really foresee a scenario where anyone rewards the Los Angeles Angels? Dumpster
fire.
It's just not going to happen.
Ugh.
And then maybe, Jose Ramirez might be the one guy, just because the Guardians, if you read some of the reports that were out there from earlier in the season, and they were kind of confirmed later on after he had signed his extension with the Guardians, he was very close to being a Toronto Blue Jay this offseason. It seemed like the Guardians were just going full rebuild. They were going to get rid of Jose Ramirez. No one had any expectation for this team so far or heading into 2022. And they're currently sitting in a wild card spot. And for as much as I don't really look at RBI and say they're an important statistic, he's, I think, like 15 RBI ahead of the next closest guy this season. He's been so vital to that team scoring runs and having any sort of, offensive heartbeat, that maybe he walks away with this award just because he's also an amazing defender. He's also a plus base runner. Mm-hmm. He really does everything, because when you get past that point and start talking about, okay, who maybe has a chance to knock off Judge, Devers, Alvarez, and Vladdy all kind of fall into this territory of guys who are absolutely amazing hitters, but are never going to win this award with any help from their defense. They're going to have to hit so well to overcome their defensive flaws that, especially when you look at Judge, who also has this narrative of, wow, Joey Gallo just wasn't working out this season. Aaron Hicks just wasn't working out this season. Can we stick Aaron Judge in center field and have him play a premium defensive position? And he's like, yeah, you can do that. I can play center field now. So there's so much going.
And he's made plays out there. I mean, I watched him on. He was on
defender.
He was on T, so I get TBS. I don't watch Yankees games faithfully. He made a play in center, tracked down a ball in left center at Yankee Stadium, which is not easy. It's not an easy left center to play.
Yep.
Holy cow, he can move too. I mean, it was a great play. I'm like, wait a minute. Aaron Judge plays center field now? Yeah, he can do that too.
Yeah, so again, it's not fun to come on and talk about like, oh, this guy's an overwhelming favorite and he's probably going to win. But I really do think we're staring down unless Aaron Judge gets hurt, this is his to lose.
Real quick, I think we're going to run out of time, but quick news update. Manny Machado is not in the lineup tonight for the Padres. Anything? It sounds like you expected that.
I mean, I'm surprised it's even a question. I think the positive take here is just that they're not immediately putting Manny Machado on the IL. Like that injury looked bad.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's going to be able to play tonight, maybe that gives you a little bit more faith in Zach Gallen, who had an amazing start to the season. He's cooled off a little bit in his recent outings. I think he
is not in the lineup, Gary. Not in the lineup.
Yeah, so I'm saying like Zach Gallen might have a little bit more value tonight. If you're looking at possibly using a Diamondbacks pitcher, I think Gallen is one of those guys just priced slightly above 9K. So maybe you can kind of look at Gallen and so 9.3. I would say Gallen probably suddenly moves into like my top 5 starters for the night. But again, I think there's a pretty big gap between Cortez, Strider, and then even just because of their price point, that Marco Gonzalez, Rich Hill sort of tier, which again, risky business, but I think it's business you kind of have to at least look at tonight.
Okay. Make it maybe a little more. Well, the total now, I was just going to say, what's the total? 6.5. Yeesh. That's low. That is a low number. 2 good pitchers on the mound, and you can get the D-backs at plus money, plus 120 for the game.
The D-backs they've been better lately offensively, but they have so many left-handed bats. They are much better against a right-handed pitcher. So Sean Manaea is not exactly a fantastic matchup for them.
Okay. Good stuff, dude. Good to have you back here on a Tuesday. Sometimes I don't like you on Twitter, but you're actually not that bad. So it's good to talk to you in person. I'm just kidding.
That's fair.
I deserve it. I really do. All of it. But I enjoy it.
You've got like 3 or 4 shtick and you like him and you stick to him. And there's nothing wrong with that.
For people like you, Garion.
I know.
And Julian and Steve, because they're such babies. It's great.
I mean, Julian really only posts seafood dinners. So
really. And that's like, no one cares, but anyone hungry, people deep down, they kind of care. They cannot
you know what? Most people often hungry. I think you're just asking the questions that some people are afraid to ask.
I mean, they could just say no and then, or block me, but they can't do it. Interesting.
Much like Fergie. I've heard people talk about you as a voice of a generation, and I just want you to know that.
Thank you. On that note, thanks to Eamon and Tom behind the scenes. For Gary and Thorne, Brendan Glasheen, best of luck with your lineups and your bets tonight in baseball. The golf crew, the golf gurus, I think they're here tomorrow. Emerson, Reed, and Jeff. Poor Jeff. He's been doing the shows by himself now for the last month and a half.
Been writing like 9 golf articles a week.
Yeah. I mean, come on, Jeff. I mean, come on, Reed. No, Reed. Come on. Baby's been born. Let's go. Back to work. Come on. That's it. Good night, everybody. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you next time.